Example of people that puppet masters trying to control the narrative. It now appears if she wants to run for supervisor again.
Tiffany Henyard, the self-proclaimed super mayor of Dolton, Illinois, is witnessing the rapid disintegration of her political empire, sending shockwaves through both her staunch supporters and vocal critics. Once seen as an unstoppable force in local politics, Henyard now faces a barrage of allegations that have seriously damaged her reputation and authority. Reports indicate that taxpayer funds intended for public services were diverted toward personal luxuries, including first-class flights, stays in luxury hotels, and extravagant events. While Henyard defends these expenses as necessary for her duties, critics argue they reveal a deeper issue of mismanagement and a disregard for the financial hardships many Dolton residents face, particularly those living in poverty who rely on the very resources she is accused of misusing. The controversy extends beyond financial missteps, with Henyard's divisive leadership style further alienating both colleagues and residents. Allegations of appointing unqualified individuals to key positions, including a police chief who failed to meet legal qualifications, have added fuel to the fire. Critics argue her administration is more akin to a personal fiefdom than a public office. From clashing with the town's board over budgetary decisions to refusing to heed calls for reform, Henyard's actions have created an atmosphere of dysfunction in Dolton, where basic public services are strained, streets fall into disrepair, and trust in local governance is at an all-time low. The revelation of Tiffany Henyard's alleged financial mismanagement caused a dramatic shift in public sentiment, leading to a sharp erosion of her base of support. Once seen as a beacon of hope for change, her leadership is now viewed as a cautionary tale of greed and mismanagement. Her story has become a symbol of political excess, illustrating the widening gap between the leader she claimed to be and the reality faced by the people she served. The very platform that had once allowed her to rise to power with promises of progress was destroyed by the scandals that marred her political career. Henyard's decisions, which prioritized her own comfort over the needs of the community, overshadowed any achievements she may have had, solidifying her reputation as a controversial figure with unrealized potential. As Henyard's political unraveling continues, the small town of Dolton is reeling from the impact of her leadership choices. The financial instability, legal battles, and operational chaos threaten to plunge the town further into crisis. However, some argue that this collapse could ultimately pave the way for systemic change and greater accountability in local governance. With investigations into her administration ongoing and calls for her resignation intensifying, questions remain about whether Henyard can weather the storm and restore her credibility. Will she emerge as a triumphant figure who overcame adversity, or will her political career be defined by scandal and unfulfilled promises? For now, Henyard's future remains uncertain, as her rise and fall seem destined to be as dramatic as the political roller coaster she is currently riding.
Because two trustees, as you mentioned, did not show up, Chris Gonzalez and Carmen Carlisle. Without them, not enough board members were present to make official.
For the first time in decades, the township opted to select its nominees through a caucus instead of the traditional primary election process, elevating the political stakes significantly. At the heart of this change was Mayor Tiffany Henyard, who also serves as the township's supervisor and was hoping to secure a spot on the ballot for the upcoming 2024 election. However, the event at the Homewood Flossmoor Park District Auditorium did not go as planned, and Henyard's political ambitions were dealt a severe blow when a procedural error led to her disqualification. Many saw this as the most significant loss of her career. The caucus, chaired by Illinois State Senator Napoleon Harris, who also heads the Democratic Committee in Thornton Township, attracted hundreds of locals eager to witness the political drama unfold. Despite the cold weather, supporters and skeptics of both candidates filled the venue, knowing that the outcome could reshape the political landscape. When the results were announced, the atmosphere was electric. Harris secured the Democratic nomination for the state Senate, effectively ousting Henyard from the contest. The moment was met with applause and jubilant cheers, with the scene feeling more like a prize fight than a typical political gathering. In a statement following the event, Henyard accused Harris and the Democratic Committee of orchestrating a plot to sabotage her candidacy, condemning the caucus as a move to advance his own political interests. Some observers referred to the scene as a political mic drop moment, with Harris leaving the venue triumphant and Henyard visibly emotional in defeat. While Henyard's accusations sparked debate, many viewed them as the desperate final cries of a politician embroiled in multiple controversies during her tenure as mayor and township supervisor. Harris, however, maintained his composure throughout the event and defended the process, asserting that the caucus was conducted according to the law and aligned with similar procedures in other Illinois communities. While the caucus was a unique strategy for Thornton Township, it was seen by some as a necessary shift in local politics. The outcome not only highlighted the high stakes of the contest, but also signified a major change in the local political environment.
Works right here in North Township. You could also say that she flunked out because her name is...
In a stunning turn of events that revealed both defiance and division, Tiffany Henyard stormed out of the Homewood Flora Park District Auditorium, accusing her political opponents of corruption and misconduct. She specifically targeted State Senator Napoleon Harris, chair of the Democratic Committee in Torrin Township, accusing him of overseeing an unfair process. In a heated outburst, she shouted that the proceedings were illegal, refusing to back down. The caucus vote that evening, which many described as chaotic but decisive, marked the end of Henyard's tenure as the Democratic nominee for Torrin Township supervisor. Her outburst was not just a moment of frustration, but a fierce declaration of defiance against the political circumstances that had damaged her reputation. As Henyard's political unraveling continues, the small town of Dolton is reeling from the impact of her leadership choices. The financial instability, legal battles, and operational chaos threaten to plunge the town further into crisis. However, some argue that this collapse could ultimately pave the way for systemic change and greater accountability in local governance. With investigations into her administration ongoing and calls for her resignation intensifying, questions remain about whether Henyard can weather the storm and restore her credibility. Will she emerge as a triumphant figure who overcame adversity, or will her political career be defined by scandal and unfulfilled promises? For now, Henyard's future remains uncertain, as her rise and fall seem destined to be as dramatic as the political roller coaster she is currently riding. The defeat led Henyard to reconsider her political future. Her removal from the Democratic ballot raised the possibility of her running as an independent, or even a right-leaning candidate. This move could showcase her tenacity, but risked further dividing her already fragmented base of support. Henyard had built her career on controversy and resilience, and it seemed unlikely she would easily step away from the fight. However, the events of that night represented a turning point, revealing the challenges she faced in retaining her authority and rebranding herself amid a series of scandals in Dalton and Torrin Township. Her defeat was seen by some as a reflection of her declining credibility, weakened by accusations of mismanagement and self-serving governance. But to her supporters, the caucus was a political ambush intended to remove a strong-willed leader. Their claims of an unfair process and voter suppression highlighted the deep divide in Illinois politics that Henyard had come to symbolize. As she exited the auditorium, flanked by both supporters and skeptics, it was clear the battle was far from over. Her defiance and the loyalty of her core followers indicated that she would continue fighting, though her political future was uncertain. As the public reaction spread on social media, Henyard's political loss resonated deeply, sparking public outcry against her leadership. Critics seized the opportunity to highlight her governance failures, portraying her defeat as proof that her grip on power was quickly eroding. Many residents, already weary of her controversial tenure, began to voice their dissatisfaction more openly, arguing that her leadership had been ineffective and detrimental to their community. Disillusionment among residents grew, fueled by Henyard's combative response to criticism and her failure to engage in meaningful dialogue about local issues. Complaints about deteriorating infrastructure and mismanaged public services only intensified, driving calls for greater accountability. As calls for transparency and accountability grew louder, Henyard's leadership, once a symbol of hope for change, became emblematic of political complacency and negligence. Her financial decisions, particularly an eyebrow-raising $33,000 spent on Amazon for community purposes, further fueled resentment. Constituents, many of whom earned less than $50,000 annually, were outraged to learn that their leader was living a lavish lifestyle while they struggled to make ends meet. The discovery of this extravagant spending, coupled with growing public distrust, revealed a stark contrast between Henyard's promises of service and the reality of her leadership. As the public outcry intensified, Henyard's political foundation began to crumble. Accusations of misconduct, extravagant spending, and financial irresponsibility added to the mounting pressure against her leadership. The more she clung to power, the more her credibility eroded. The very qualities that had once made her a political force, her defiance and tenacity, were now seen by many as a refusal to acknowledge her failures and the legitimate grievances of her constituents.
That's all it took for Tiffany Henyard to come out as the Democratic nominee for North Township Supervisor.
The revelation of Tiffany Henyard's alleged financial mismanagement caused a dramatic shift in public sentiment, leading to a sharp erosion of her base of support. Once seen as a beacon of hope for change, her leadership is now viewed as a cautionary tale of greed and mismanagement. Her story has become a symbol of political excess, illustrating the widening gap between the leader she claimed to be and the reality faced by the people she served. The very platform that had once allowed her to rise to power with promises of progress was destroyed by the scandals that marred her political career. Henyard's decisions, which prioritized her own comfort over the needs of the community, overshadowed any achievements she may have had, solidifying her reputation as a controversial figure with unrealized potential. Her political demise extended far beyond her own downfall, serving as a warning about the dangers of unchecked ambition and self-interest. As Henyard's power collapsed, it underscored the risks of political leadership devoid of accountability, alienating and betraying the very people she was meant to represent. Locals, once hopeful for change, now felt disillusioned by the ongoing politically motivated disputes that were severely hampering the community's ability to receive essential services. Residents voiced frustration, particularly over delays to important projects and compromised basic services. The focus, once on addressing the community's urgent needs, shifted toward political conflict, further driving a wedge between Henyard and the people she claimed to serve. Critics began to question whether Henyard, as the Democratic candidate for supervisor of Torrance Township, was genuinely acting in the best interests of her constituents, or if her actions were driven by personal ambition and power struggles. Accusations of mismanagement and misconduct became a central issue, igniting calls for a new kind of leadership, one grounded in humility and accountability. The tipping point came when Henyard abruptly left her campaign after just 7 minutes, an action that highlighted the immense financial stakes involved in the ongoing disputes. If necessary permits were not obtained on time, the community could face severe consequences, including the possibility of a $40,000 fine and the need to repay already allocated funds for a critical project. The situation grew more dire as the executive director of the Park District warned that if grants and permits expired, the community could lose access to important park improvements and safe spaces for families. The leadership style of Henyard and her administration, marked by combative and controlling tactics, had polarized the community and impeded progress on vital initiatives. Despite not facing criminal charges, Henyard's ongoing FBI investigation remained a significant blow to her credibility. The investigation continued to cast a shadow over her leadership, while rumors of internal strife within her inner circle added to the mounting pressure. Longtime allies were reportedly drifting away, and employee resignations fueled speculation that the once solid foundation of her political base was crumbling.